across the supply chain. Essentially the only thing we have now to take out insects is to fumigate. Really important too, and I guess I'll say now, like I said,
we do have issues with high moisture, storing high moisture grain. That's probably one of the issues which of course brings insects. It's the second issue, I guess.
Oh look, there's nothing better than coming on farm to sort of experience what the issues that we do have in grain storage. So it's yeah, and we've all got them. As much as we like to think that we can just sort of, we've got a silver bullet, but there isn't one. So mine was more about the storage and the best way moving forward for me to invest and where to invest and how to invest best, I suppose, moving forward, and how I'm going to store my grain. Yeah.
I was coming over just to get an overview, probably more so of the aeration and grain drying aspects of what we were talking about, and then to know about insects. We're using mainly grain bags at the minute, so insects haven't been a problem yet. So I was more looking to, we know we need to dry some grain, possibly just hold it at aeration. Yeah, I was keen to find a bit more out about that.
Oh, I guess we were really here today, Jeanette, to try and get a better understanding on grain shed storage, silo storage, hygiene, and probably how to make some of our chemistry work to its greatest benefit to us for controlling weevils and other grain insects.
Well, Jeanette, I think for growers now particularly is some of the challenges they're facing with controlling insects. And the ability to kill insects if they do have insects in their storage system. Currently the only way they can do that is to fumigate, and to do that properly and so it works is to use gas tight sealed storage, and that's something that a lot of growers don't have. So that's a big one. The other one is, I guess, just stepping back and having a look at what currently they're doing, what they're using and how they might need to improve that, what they need to add into their system to make it work better. And that includes things like getting their hygiene right, sealed storage that's gas tight, using aeration, doing their monitoring, and I guess the key thing there is to actively managing their storage system and their grain in storage, like they do that in their cropping time, where they are checking, looking, responding to changes in the season, responding to what's going on with the crop. The same skills need to be applied in grain storage, which is probably not happening as much as it should, in on-farm storage particularly. Generally speaking, people are saying there's anything up to 30 to 40% of the crop now stored on farm. So it's significant in terms of what it used to be, and if the trend continues as I think it's going to and what we are seeing, my personal view is I think within 5 to 10 years we will be seeing at least 50% of the crop stored on farm and even staying on farm going direct to customer. And so it's a big change in the sort of landscape in terms of the storage of grain going to market. So growers, for a variety of reasons, are doing that. From as simple as they don't have sites locally any longer because of closures. Big one that's driving it is just harvest logistics. So grain comes off that much more quickly than it used to. Physically handling that is just so much harder. And then of course growers are looking at how they can market their grain themselves and access different markets to better their returns. So it's a range of reasons why they're doing it, but for me the key is that they get the system that's going to work for them to achieve their goals and to manage what they need to do well. What they want to do in terms of treating grain they can properly do in the storage they select, and that it's, as I said today, farming has changed in a lot of ways to be timely about what you do and to make it easier to do it so that you can manage it well. And grain storage is no different. So they want to select a storage system that will allow them to do what they need to do to outturn a quality product. So if they want to fumigate, they need to have gas tight storage. A grower shouldn't fumigate in a structure that isn't gas tight. For a variety of reasons, but mainly it just doesn't work properly. They probably need to think about, if I'm going to store grain particularly long term, cooling the grain with aeration is a really good management tool, because cool grain stores for a long time and stores very well. They need to get their hygiene right, so they need to have a plan about how they're going to clean up, how they can minimise places where insects can be, and then do things like structurally treat the silo complex or the storage complex. So like here in the shed at Trevor's, we looked at the walls like you said, and there's some of them there's not very smooth surfaces, so grain can get trapped, insects can hide. So how can you manage that better as an example? Safe work practices. So that can be as simple as going up a silo and climbing a silo to do. Today we talked about inspecting the grain and monitoring it. So the best way to do that is to go up to the top of the silo. Now, that's the best way to do it, but you need to go on and make sure you do that safely. Their use of chemicals, like in herbicide usage or pesticide usage in the crop. Safety gear is an important feature of that. It's always on a label, so that's what growers should be doing when they're storing grain. Again, I showed today the different sort of mask you need when you use phosphine, because it's a fumigant. It's not a normal half-face respirator, it is a full-face gas mask. In my experience, I rarely see that on a farm, yet in my experience, most people would be using phosphine. Food safety is clearly something that, market or the consumer is something that is real in their space. And in terms of grain, it's a food product, how we manage it is important, both from a physical and a quality perspective, but also definitely in grain storage, we are actually actively putting chemical on the product. Now we know when we do that correctly, it is exceptionally safe, but we have to do it correctly. So we need to be sure we're applying it in the proper manner, that when we apply it, we're doing it properly and safely, and then we're storing it in a manner that we also maintain the integrity of the quality so that we don't have problems with maybe mould and fungi and stuff like that. So again, I think the accountability, probably the traceability down the supply chain is becoming much more of the package, and that because growers are electing to store grain on farm, they now become part of that supply chain, and they are then having to understand what are the implications of those things and how can they best manage that again. So again, there's, I guess it's that thing of when you take on board something, you've got to also take on board what's required to do that, to meet the market. And I think food safety is definitely becoming more and more a part of that package.
I guess the big thing that I really heard about today is probably the use of likes of dryer sites and those type of powder products. We haven't used them as yet. I didn't think they were probably particularly appropriate for our job, but I obviously didn't know enough about their benefits, and I think that's something that we really will put into our business.
Well, I've got a direction on which way to head, I suppose. He's reiterated the fact that you spend your money wisely, and sealed silos and quality is pay for quality but buy it once, and it should last, and it pays dividends at the other end because it makes your OH&S issues with treating the insects and treating your growing, and that's really paramount really in this day and age. To OH&S is a big factor, especially with workers and that. Like, we can't do everything ourselves anymore, so you've got to really look at in every operation you've got to try and look at idiot-proofing everything. In just, I suppose, the urban myths on how to administer some of the chemicals and that, and so the right way of doing things, I suppose.
Well, hygiene is certainly an important thing, and get that break in the breeding cycle with the insects. Pretty important. Like to be able to prevent them rather than treat them. But, it's just something we've got to work towards.
I always like a presenter who will put his neck out and tell you things that do and don't work, and not game to say things. We need to know these sorts of things, and I found the presenter very, very good at putting his reputation on the line and telling you what products he believes in and what products he doesn't. So that's a standout.